Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Let's Mind Travel, where we will be going deep into the conspiracy that living amongst us and controlling the population at large is a highly sophisticated race of lizard people. So, in my research, the furthest back I was able to find any publication that referenced lizard people was in 1933, when a gentleman named George Shufelt created a radio X-ray machine designed to detect underground anomalies, was surveying the hills of Los Angeles, where he discovered what he believed to be large networks of underground tunnels. In addition to the tunnels, he found large deposits of gold, as well as open spaces he believed could have been used for living quarters. What piqued George's interest the most is as he was mapping out these tunnels and these open spaces on a grid, it started to take the shape of a lizard. In order to learn more about this discovery, George sought out a very well-educated Native American Hopi chief by the name of Chief Greenleaf. Chief Greenleaf told George a story that had been passed down from generation to generation regarding a race of lizard people that ruled the planet for thousands and thousands of years. And about 5,000 years ago, there was a cataclysmic meteor shower that wiped out most of them and forced the remaining survivors to migrate to the west coast of the United States, where they built these elaborate underground cities to protect themselves from further catastrophes like this. George was told that he had found one of 3 of these cities. The one he found consisted of 285 tunnels, living spaces for up to 1,000 families, as well as 16 immense deposits of gold. With this information, George went to a group of investors where he offered that him and a team would excavate the site in exchange for funding, then they would profit share on anything that was unearthed. Unfortunately, after 20 years of excavation, nothing was ever found. The money was dried up, and in 1957, George passed away, leaving behind an amazing story, however, no hard proof of this lizard city that Chief Greenleaf had told him about. Now, as we move forward into the 1960s, something I would like to make note of is the triune brain hypothesis. This was a study done by neuroscientist Paul MacLean, where he declared that the bottom portion of our brain is our lizard brain, which he referred to as the R complex because he believed this was remnants of our reptilian ancestors. This portion of our brain is responsible for our primal functions, such as regulating body temperature, blood pressure, breathing. Now, I brought that up so we can tie it back in as we start connecting dots between this and other conspiracy theories a little bit later in the video. But before that, what I like to do is talk about the largest figurehead to date who really did the most to popularize this conspiracy, which is David Icke. In the 1990s, David Icke presented the notion that there was a reptilian shape-shifting race among us that was controlling the planet, and they were in charge of such secret societies as the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the royal family, politicians, entertainers, and really anybody that has control or great influence over others. Icke explained that all of these reptilian shapeshifters shared a royal bloodline. In regards to how they keep their identity a secret, because they're always in the reptilian form, they're actually able to put a vibration field around themselves, which tricks human eyes into viewing them as other humans. Icke's biggest piece of evidence for reptilians ruling the world was how ancient civilizations would sculpt figurines depicting human bodies with reptilian-like heads. The most popular being the Ubaid lizardman figurines, which were discovered while excavating an ancient Mesopotamian site. Upon analyzing these figurines, they were dated back about 7,000 years, which is interesting because historians credit the first ever human civilization being about 6,000 years ago, which was the Sumerians. So the idea that a civilization before them had the insight that it's possible that reptilians were ruling the planet shows that they may have had access to knowledge of the reality we're truly in. Now let's get into the portion of the video where we start connecting dots between this and other conspiracy theories, because it's my belief that within many of these conspiracy theories there's large amounts of truth that have just been translated over time and told in different stories to confuse us about what is actually going on. So as we connect the dots, maybe we can paint a clearer picture of our reality. Now, the main dot connector that we're going to be using is what David Icke referred to as the Royal Bloodline. This is the basis that there is a superior race among us that had some large part to do with our creation, as well as creating the constructs in which control us. So another theory that introduces the concept of a royal bloodline, and one of my favorites, is the Anunnaki theory. This is a theory that the Anunnaki, which were an all-knowing superior being that came from the 10th planet in our solar system, Nibiru, about 75,000 years ago, came to Earth to mine gold. At that point, they brought their own slave race, which was from a neighboring planet of theirs called the Inki. Over time, however, the Inki became too aware and started to revolt against the Anunnaki. In return, the Anunnaki completely wiped out the Inki, and in order to have a new slave race that could work for them, they mixed their own DNA with that of the chimpanzee, creating Homo sapiens. What happened next is eventually the Anunnaki became sexually attracted to the humans, started interbreeding, thus creating the Royal Bloodline. Now the last dot I would like to connect is going to have to do with the Bible. Now the reason that the Bible seemed interesting to me when I was researching for this video is the fact that Satan himself could be viewed as a reptilian shapeshifter, as he appeared to Eve in the Garden of Eden as a snake, persuading her to eat that apple off of the tree, thus giving all humans from that point on original sin. Now in order to tie in our main dot connector of the Royal Bloodline to the Bible, however, I'm going to reference the Nephilim. The Nephilim, when translated, can either mean giants or fallen angels. These were highly spiritual beings that walked the planet at the same time as humans and had a lifespan of thousands of years. At one point, the Nephilim became attracted to humans and started interbreeding with them, thus creating a royal bloodline, a hybrid between the Nephilim and the human beings. So now that we've established the common thread of the royal bloodline within all of these theories, let's talk about what happened next. So in the lizard people theory, based off of what Chief Greenleaf told to George Shufelt around 5,000 years ago in efforts to wipe them off of the planet, there was a great cataclysmic meteor shower. However, some of these lizard people were able to survive and seek refuge in these underground cities. In regards to the Anunnaki theory, their solution to wipe out this royal bloodline and to stop the dilution of the Anunnaki DNA was to flood the earth and wipe everything out. However, some of the Anunnaki couldn't bear to watch the humans, which they had grown fond of, get destroyed, so they led them to different parts of the planet into higher grounds where after the flood receded, they built giant monuments to encase knowledge to pass on for generations thereafter. For the Bible, God became infuriated after seeing the interbreeding of his creations and decided it was time to reset the planet, thus having Noah build an ark where he took his family as well as 2 of each species, so once the flood receded, they could repopulate the planet. Now, for all of these theories, let's talk about where these royal bloodlines could exist today and their potential impact on society. As far as the lizard people, according to David Icke, the royal bloodline is now controlling the population through politics, media, the royal family, and a multitude of secret societies. And now for why I brought up the triune brain hypothesis earlier. As humans, we were given the gift of consciousness that allows us to have common sense, logic, creativity, humor, and if we get trapped into only using our lizard brain, we won't be able to reap the benefits of all this experience has for us. And that's exactly the goal of the lizard people's royal bloodline. Now, let's talk about the members of the Anunnaki royal bloodline that survived the flood and where their impact could be seen today. So as the theory goes, after the flood, the survivors span across the planet and built large monuments, such as the pyramids, in order to encode and encase sacred information to be passed down from generation to generation, with the goal being that those who were able to decode it would experience true enlightenment and understand the realities of which we live in. According to theorist Zecharia Sitchin, the Anunnaki are responsible for giving the Sumerians the information needed to inscribe the Sumerian tablets. So it seems to me that the goal of the Anunnaki's royal bloodline has always been to push forward human consciousness and enlightenment, and that's what makes it a favorite of mine. And now for our final theory. According to the Bible, after the flood, Noah, his family, and the animals were able to repopulate the planet, thus restoring its balance. However, let's assume that some of the Nephilim, just like the Anunnaki, were able to survive the flood. Where would they be at today? I would imagine that they would have turned into something very similar to the lizard people or reptilian shapeshifters and would make an effort to create constructs that would control human beings as payback for what God tried to do to them because of their interactions with humans. And now, in order to start summarizing and conclude the ultimate truth that we've been discussing in this video, I'd like to share a quote by the writer and psychedelic advocate Graham Hancock, where he says, "I don't believe that consciousness is generated by the brain. I believe that the brain is more of a receiver of consciousness." The reason I chose to share that quote is because I do believe that the biggest war being fought on this planet is over the control of those receivers in which give us consciousness. On one hand, you have the reptilian shapeshifters, which are trying to keep us confined to using only our lizard brain and operate on an extremely low frequency, making it easier to divide and conquer us. On the other hand, you have the Anunnaki, whose main purpose has been to enlighten human beings and raise our consciousness level, allowing us to operate on a higher frequency. So whether or not there really is a race of reptilian shapeshifters, the fact is I do believe that there are forces of good and evil on this planet that are battling for our consciousness, and the more we are aware of that, the better chances we have of rising above it and truly experience the Age of Enlightenment, also referred to as the Age of Aquarius. Now, did the Bible give us the ultimate clue of these reptilian shapeshifters making Satan appear as a snake? That is up for you to decide.